When my daughter told me I was too old to walk her down the aisle, I just nodded and sat quietly. The next morning, her fiance called me begging, because I held the one thing he didn't want her to see. Before we get started, like this video, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Dad, I don't want you to walk me down the aisle. The words hit me harder than any slap could. I blinked at her, thinking I must have misheard. Maybe it was the rush of the coffee machine in the corner. Maybe my ears weren't working right. But then she said it again, slower this time, like she was making sure I understood. You're too old, she added. It'll be embarrassing. I don't want my wedding pictures ruined with you in them. That one cut deep, right into the bone. I sat there in her apartment's kitchen, staring at my only child, the girl I had raised with my own hands after her mother passed. I remembered tying her shoelaces when she was 5, wiping her tears when she scraped her knee, staying up late to help her cram for exams. I remembered every sacrifice, every promise I made to her mother's grave, that I'd never let our daughter feel alone in this world. And now here she was, looking me straight in the eyes, cold as ice, telling me she didn't want me in the one moment I had always dreamed of. I forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat. You don't want me there? I asked quietly. She shifted in her chair, avoiding my gaze. Her voice got sharper, like she was reciting lines someone had fed her. It's not that I don't want you there, Dad. I just don't want you walking me down the aisle. Times have changed. It's old-fashioned. And honestly, I don't want people whispering about how old and frail you look in the pictures. Old. Frail. I'm 62, not 90. I still mow my lawn. I still lift my own groceries. I still drive myself anywhere I need to go. Frail? No. What she really meant was something else. Something that didn't sound like her. I leaned back, studying her. The way she avoided my eyes. The way her words sounded rehearsed, not natural. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was him. Her fiancé. I had never liked the man. Too smooth, too polished, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He shook my hand the first time we met like he was doing me a favor. And there was always something about the way he hovered around her, as though keeping her under a spell. Now his fingerprints were all over this. Is this what you want, or what he wants? I asked, my voice low. Her eyes flashed. Don't start, Dad. You always have a problem with him. This isn't about him. This is about me and what I want. I want my wedding day to be perfect. And I don't want pity looks from guests because my father looks too old to keep up. Her words were blades. And every blade twisted deeper because it wasn't just rejection. It was humiliation. I could have argued. I could have shouted. But instead, I nodded. Slowly. Calmly. All right, I said. She looked almost surprised at how easily I gave in. So you understand? I understand perfectly. My voice didn't shake, though my heart did. What she didn't know was that the moment she dismissed me, she gave me freedom. Freedom to stop pretending he was just a little arrogant. Freedom to follow the gnawing suspicion that had been chewing at my gut since the day I met him. Because if he could convince my daughter to cut me out of her own wedding, what else was he hiding? I stood up, pushed in my chair, and forced a smile. Thank you for telling me, I said. I won't embarrass you. She relaxed a little, thinking she had won. Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd understand. But as I walked out of her apartment, the air outside felt colder than it should. I paused on the sidewalk, staring at the traffic lights changing across the street, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to beg for my place in her life. Not anymore. But I was going to find out who exactly she was marrying. And by the time I was done, she would see him for what he really was. The only question was, would she see it before or after the vows? I tried to put her words behind me. I told myself she was under stress. Wedding planning can turn anyone sharp. Maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But then I saw him again. The fiancé. And every doubt in me came roaring back to life. It was at a family dinner 2 weeks later. He came in late, flashing that same fake grin, his arm draped too tightly around my daughter. He shook my hand like a politician shaking a voter's, firm, but hollow, his eyes already darting elsewhere. Good to see you again, sir, he said, though the word sir sounded like mockery. I smiled back. Likewise. All through dinner, I watched him. The way he bragged about his job, but never gave details. The way his phone buzzed 3, 4, 5 times, and each time he glanced at the screen with that twitch of irritation before sliding it face down. The The way my daughter laughed too loudly at his jokes, her eyes darting toward him before every word she spoke, like she needed his approval before she breathed. And then he slipped. It was small, a toast. He raised his glass and said, "Here's to new beginnings." Simple enough. But then, under his breath, I heard him mutter, "Finally, finally," a word loaded with history, a word that didn't fit a man supposedly starting his first marriage. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing my daughter's voice again. "You're too old. You'll embarrass me." No, that wasn't her. That was him, whispering poison in her ear. I needed answers. So I started watching him closer. Every time I saw him, I noticed something new. The expensive watch on his wrist, though his job didn't pay that kind of money. The way he always paid for dinners with a card, never cash. The way his smile faltered when anyone asked about his family. One night, when he excused himself to take a work call, I quietly stepped outside behind him. He didn't notice me in the shadows. "Listen," he hissed into his phone. I said, "I'll get the money. Just hold off a little longer. Once this wedding's done, everything will be fine." My stomach tightened. Money. Always money. When he came back inside, his smile was plastered back on, but I could see the sweat on his brow. That was the night I knew. This wasn't love. This wasn't about building a life with my daughter. This was a transaction. The next morning, I drove to the courthouse. Courthouses don't lie. People do. I've lived long enough to know that. The next morning, I walked into the county records office. The smell of dust and old paper filled the air, and the woman at the counter barely looked up when I asked for marriage and divorce records. "What name?" she asked, her nails clicking on the keyboard. I gave her his. Her eyes scanned the screen, then flicked up at me. "You'll need to fill out a request form. Certified copies are $10 each." I slid a 20 across the counter. "Keep the change." 10 minutes later, I had the first crack in his mask. He was married. Not just married, still married. Divorce proceedings filed 6 months ago. The ink on the papers was still bright. I sat there in my car, holding the documents, my hands shaking. He hadn't told her. He hadn't told my daughter she was about to marry a man who hadn't even finished tearing himself out of his last marriage. And then I saw the other papers. Child support filings. Motions for late payments. A judge's warning. Pay or face penalties. So that was it. The money he needed. The new beginning he toasted to. My daughter wasn't a bride. She was a lifeline. I should have driven straight to her. I should have shoved those papers in her face and made her see the truth. But I didn't. Something in me whispered, "Not yet. Wait." Because men like him, they don't leave just one trail. There's always more. And I wanted it all. Over the next week, I dug deeper. Public financial records. Credit checks. Bank liens. Everywhere I looked, the same story, debt piled on debt. Credit cards maxed out, loans in default, collection agencies on his heels. He wasn't marrying her out of love. He was marrying her out of survival. And the worst part? He had convinced her that I was the problem, that I was the burden, that I was the embarrassment. Every night, I'd lay the papers out on my kitchen table, like pieces of a puzzle. Divorce proceedings, child support orders, debt notices. His entire life was a fire he was trying to smother with my daughter's future. The anger burned hot in me, but I kept my face calm every time I saw her. I didn't let her see the storm building behind my eyes. Because this wasn't going to be a shouting match in her apartment. This was going to be a reckoning. And when it came, it would be public, loud, unforgettable. I just had to wait for the right moment. The wedding. The night before the wedding, my phone became a battlefield. It started at 9:13 p.m., one call. Then another at 9:18. By 10, I'd lost count. By midnight, I had 27 missed calls and a flood of desperate texts. "Oh, we need to talk. Please, don't do this. You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. If you tell her, you'll ruin everything." Ruin everything. He wasn't worried about losing her. He was worried about losing the money. The lifeline. I didn't reply. I didn't pick up. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with the stack of papers spread out in front of me. The divorce filings, the child support orders, the overdue debts. His entire rotten life reduced to ink and shame. I studied them one last time, folded them neatly, and slipped them into a plain envelope. The weapon was ready. And tomorrow, I'd fire it. The church was beautiful. Candles flickered in golden sconces, Roses lined the aisle. A harpist strummed softly while guests murmured in their pews. On the surface, it was a perfect wedding day. But when I looked at him, standing at the altar, I saw the cracks. His smile was plastered too wide. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. He kept licking his lips, glancing toward the doors like a man waiting for the hangman. He knew I was here. He knew what I carried in my jacket pocket. And for once, he couldn't charm his way out of it. My daughter walked down the aisle alone, radiant in her dress, every eye on her. She didn't notice me in the back. She didn't want me there. But I was. And I wasn't leaving without giving her the truth. The ceremony began. Words floated around me. Love, commitment, vows. All noise. My eyes never left him. I watched the sweat bead at his temple, the twitch in his jaw as the officiant asked him to speak his vows. He fumbled through them, voice breaking, gaze darting to the back of the church where I sat. Then it was her turn. My daughter's voice was steady, soft, full of blind devotion. Every word a dagger twisting in me. She truly believed in him, believed he was her future. That was when I stood. The scrape of the pew echoed like thunder. Heads turned. The room hushed. Every guest's eyes followed me as I walked slowly down the aisle, my footsteps heavy, deliberate. "Dad?" she whispered, confusion flashing across her face. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. My focus was on him, the liar who had stolen her voice, poisoned her love, turned her against her own blood. When I reached the altar, I pulled the envelope from my jacket and held it out. "Read." The crowd stirred. My daughter frowned, hesitating. "What is this?" "Read," I repeated, my voice cold as stone. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The first page, divorce filings. Her eyes widened. The second, child support arrears. Her breath caught. The third, overdue debts, notices stamped in red. Her lips parted in shock. What is this?" His mask cracked. "It's nothing," he blurted, reaching for the papers. "Don't listen to him. He's trying to ruin us." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Aunts gasped. Cousins leaned in. Phones lifted, snapping photos, recording video. "Nothing," I barked, my voice slicing through the church. "You're still married. You're being sued for child support. You're drowning in debt. And you were planning to use her to pay for it all." Gasps erupted. The officiant froze, clutching his book. The harpist's hands hovered over her strings, motionless. My daughter stared at him, eyes brimming with tears. "Tell me it isn't true." He reached for her hands, desperate. "Baby, it's complicated. I didn't want to burden you." "Burden her?" I snapped. "You were going to bury her. You've been lying since the day you met." The crowd was boiling now, whispers turning to open condemnation. Unbelievable. Disgusting. She deserves better. But still, she looked at him. Not at me. At him. And then, she whispered the words that broke me clean in half. "I don't care, I still love him." The church went silent. Her voice grew louder, trembling but resolute. "I love him. I don't care about the past. I'm going through with this." The room reeled. My chest tightened. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. I had given her the truth, gift-wrapped and undeniable. And she still chose the lie. He clutched her hands, relief flooding his face, his grin returning. He thought he had won. But he hadn't. Not even close. Because the moment she said those words, she lost me. I slipped the empty envelope back into my pocket, straightened my jacket. Without another word, I turned and walked down the aisle, every step echoing in the stunned silence. No shouting, no pleading, no begging her to wake up. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes when love dies. The kind of silence that follows you forever. I didn't go back into the church. I didn't wait to see if the ceremony limped on, or if the whispers drowned it out. I didn't care whether they exchanged vows under a cloud of scandal, or whether the whole thing collapsed in shame. I walked out into the daylight, the air crisp against my face, and for the first time in months, I felt calm. Not happy, not proud, just calm. The kind of calm that comes when you've stopped fighting for something that was already lost. 2 days later, I got the call. It was my daughter. Her voice was tight, broken, like she'd been crying all night. "Dad," she whispered, "why would you do that?" I sat in silence, letting her words hang there. "Why would you humiliate me like that?" she pressed. "Do you know what people are saying? Do you know what it's like for me right now?" I almost laughed. She still didn't see it. She wasn't humiliated because of me. She was humiliated because of him, because of the truth. But she had chosen him anyway. I did it because I love you, I said quietly. Because you needed to know who he is before you signed your life away. Her breath hitched. I don't care about his past. He's my future, and nothing you do will change that. There it was again, the nail in the coffin. I nodded to myself, even though she couldn't see it. Then you've made your choice, I said. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, steady as stone, that from this moment forward, you live with the man you chose. And you live without me. Her voice cracked. Dad, I ended the call. That evening, I called my lawyer. We met the next morning, papers spread across his desk. You're sure about this? He asked. I was. I'd never been surer of anything in my life. Remove her, I said. Every cent, every asset, every piece of property. She gets nothing. Not a dime. Not when I'm alive, not when I'm gone. He studied me for a long moment. This is final, you know. I know. The pen didn't shake in my hand when I signed the new will. For years, everything I built was meant for her. The house, the savings, the investments. I had pictured her secure, protected, cared for long after I was gone. Not anymore. Now, she had chosen her own future. A future wrapped around a man drowning in debt, dragging her down with him. And I would let him. Weeks later, I heard whispers. Their honeymoon had been cut short. Creditors were circling. His ex-wife was demanding payment. The walls were closing in, just like I knew they would. But I stayed silent. No calls. No visits. No offers of help. I had done my part. I had given her the truth in front of everyone. And she had still chosen the lie. The rest was hers to carry. Sometimes at night, I catch myself remembering the little girl she once was. The one who held my hand crossing the street. The one who whispered, "Daddy, don't leave," when storms rattled her window. And then I remember her standing in that church, clutching a liar's hand, looking me dead in the eye and saying, "I don't care." That's when the calm settles over me again. Because in the end, I didn't lose her on the wedding day. I lost her the moment she decided my love was worth less than his lies. So I let her go, and I let her burn. Let's hear your thoughts. Do you think he should have told earlier? And do you think he made the right choice of letting his daughter go? Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more stories like this.